In the Galactic Federation, humanity was a mystery, a curious new species from a blue planet on the far edges of a relatively quiet solar system. They had joined the interstellar community only recently, their technology and adaptability impressing some, while their odd behaviors confused others. And while humanity had contributed some genuinely innovative ideas, their methods were unorthodox to say the least. Nothing demonstrated this better than humanity's peculiar faith in a digital repository of knowledge called YouTube. Most alien species in the Federation had dedicated repositories of knowledge, massive libraries, vast neural networks, or councils of elders with ancient wisdom. They approached learning with reverence and caution. Humans, however, were bafflingly casual. Their primary response to technical challenges was something they called Googling it and, even more bizarrely, watching how-to videos on YouTube. To an alien, it was inconceivable that any intelligent species would rely on random strangers demonstrating techniques in questionable settings. The first time this became a real issue was on the research outpost Thalos, for a remote station in neutral space dedicated to the study of advanced gravitational mechanics. Thalos was staffed by the best minds from across the galaxy, Allurian scientists with their centuries of study in cosmic physics, Chthon engineers whose hive-mind approach to problem-solving was unparalleled, and the meticulous, ever-cautious Vlithanian researchers. And then there was Sarah, a human technician who had been assigned to Thalos as part of a new exchange program. The outpost was sophisticated but fragile, running on a delicate balance of high-powered gravitational modulators and stabilizers. Any malfunction in the system could disrupt the entire base, making gravity unpredictable, fluctuating between zero gravity and extreme gravitational fields. It was a marvel of engineering and a ticking time bomb if mishandled. One afternoon, the outpost experienced a minor gravitational anomaly. It wasn't entirely unusual, as the research required high-powered gravitational manipulation, but the anomaly wasn't going away. As minutes passed, it became clear that something in the control module had failed. The gravity began shifting unpredictably, sending researchers and equipment floating, only to slam down to the floor moments later. Panic rippled through the station as researchers clung to whatever they could, trying to keep themselves steady. The base's head engineer, a cautious Chthon named HFY, immediately took charge. Everyone remained calm. He instructed through the intercom, his voice a soothing monotone despite the chaos. This is a malfunction in the stabilizer array. I'm reviewing the protocols now. As HFY attempted to bring up the stabilizer schematics, Sarah was already scrambling toward the control module. Her alien colleagues watched her with a mixture of confusion and horror as she began bypassing safety controls and examining circuits with little regard for the established protocols. "What are you doing, human Sarah?" HFY asked, his multiple eyes blinking in concern. "This system is complex. I require several minutes to analyze the best course of action." Sarah glanced over her shoulder with an enthusiastic grin. "Don't worry, I got this. I saw a fix for this on YouTube once. It's easy." The room fell silent. The aliens exchanged nervous glances, murmurs rippling through the team. "YouTube," HFY repeated, his voice tinged with confusion and worry. "Is this a human databank of gravitational mechanics?" Sarah waved him off, already diving into the tangle of wires and components. "Kind of. It's a video platform where people share how-to guides. This one guy fixed his car with a trick that'll work here." The aliens around her looked on in horror, and one of the Vlithanian researchers tried to intervene. "Human Sarah, please, this system is not analogous to—" "Relax, I know what I'm doing," Sarah interrupted, her voice breezy, as though the highly complex, high-risk equipment in her hands was no different from a home appliance. She began unhooking circuits and rerouting power, her movements confident as she replicated steps she'd seen on a repair video. HFY and his team could only watch as Sarah deftly adjusted settings, rerouted circuits, and with a final flourish, flipped a switch. For a moment, the base's gravity returned to normal, and the aliens around her felt a wave of cautious relief. Maybe they thought humans really did have some hidden knowledge. But just as they exhaled in relief, a low rumble reverberated through the outpost. The gravity field began to oscillate wildly, shifting from zero gravity to crushing levels in seconds. Sarah's face blanched, her confidence faltering as objects, tables, lab equipment, even researchers, began to float and crash unpredictably. The stabilizer array was struggling to keep up with the load, and warning lights flashed red on every console. In the chaos, HFY managed to crawl over to the main panel and disengage the system, resetting the entire array with an emergency override. As the stabilizers powered down and gravity returned to normal, the crew picked themselves up, disoriented but uninjured. HFY turned to Sarah, his normally calm face showing a rare flash of frustration. "Human Sarah, what possessed you to bypass the safety controls without a proper diagnostic?" Sarah looked sheepish, brushing dust from her uniform. "I thought it would work. It looked exactly like the fix I saw in this video, where they jumpstart circuits by rerouting power." One of the Illyrian researchers, a tall, lithe creature named Drithin, stared at her, clearly bewildered. "You thought? You attempted to fix a gravitational modulator with information from an unverified source." Sarah shrugged, a little defensively. "Hey, sometimes things on YouTube work really well. I've fixed tons of stuff at home with it." The aliens in the room exchanged glances, a mixture of shock and horror playing on their faces. They had known humans were bold, perhaps even a bit reckless. But this was something else entirely. The idea that a human would trust a random video tutorial over formal training or protocols was both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Later that day, the incident became the talk of Thalos 4, and word quickly spread to nearby outposts and research stations. Researchers and engineers recounted the event with incredulity to colleagues, and the phrase, "Trust me, I saw this on YouTube," became an instant warning sign. In the Chthon command network, it was flagged as an alert phrase, a term to monitor when never mentioned by humans in critical operations. The other Federation members were bewildered by the incident, struggling to understand why humans would place such blind faith in an open, unregulated database of amateur knowledge. They tried to explain the issue in diplomatic channels, but humans just laughed it off, insisting that they'd seen great solutions there before. But while most aliens dismissed this as a strange human quirk, some had become wary. It seemed that humans had a peculiar view of safety and expertise, a view that didn't quite fit the Galactic Federation standards. What the other species couldn't understand was that humanity's confidence came not just from naivety, but from a deep-seated belief that there was no harm in trying. They saw challenges as puzzles to solve and were willing to use unconventional, even dubious methods if they thought there was a chance it might work. Yet, in the weeks following the Thalos 4 incident, new protocols emerged. Alien engineers were now instructed to intercept any human attempting repairs with the phrase, "Trust me, I saw this on YouTube." Emergency response teams were briefed on the potential for rapid, unexpected actions from their human counterparts. YouTube incidents, as they were dubbed, became a popular cautionary tale, told among alien scientists with a mix of humor and apprehension. For the humans, it was all a bit amusing, a reminder that their innovation often came with a side of chaos. But for the Federation, it was a new understanding that humans, while endlessly resourceful, had a unique relationship with caution and risk. The reputation of humans and their infamous phrase, "Trust me, I saw this on YouTube," had spread throughout the Galactic Federation. On distant space stations, in the hidden research outposts, and even aboard high-ranking warships, the stories of human fixes gone wrong had become legendary. Most Federation species took these tales as a warning. Humans were brilliant, creative, and incredibly dangerous when left to improvise. But still, many alien officers and scientists couldn't fully believe that an entire species would trust something so inherently chaotic. That skepticism would be challenged in a high-stakes scenario on the Federation starship Celestial Dream. The Celestial Dream was a flagship exploration vessel tasked with repairing a critical satellite array deep in an asteroid belt. The array was essential for communication across several star systems, and the mission required precision and utmost caution. Aboard the ship was an elite crew selected from the Federation's most advanced species, including the meticulous Traku engineers, known for their methodical approach to technology and the cautious HFY navigators, whose attention to detail bordered on the obsessive. Among these well-trained Federation elites was Jake Monroe, a human astronaut assigned to Celestial Dream for his expertise in engineering and experience with asteroid operations. Jake was known for his quick thinking and bold approach to challenges, qualities that had earned him a place on the mission. However, Jake's presence also filled his crewmates with a lingering sense of unease. Every alien aboard had, by now, heard the tales of Thalos 4 and the infamous gravitational mishap caused by a human following of YouTube fix. There was no official Federation rule against human YouTube solutions, but every alien officer and engineer had been privately briefed to intercept any DIY repair attempts that their human colleagues might attempt. The trouble started as soon as the Celestial Dream reached the asteroid field surrounding the satellite array. The asteroids in this region were dense and volatile, shifting in unpredictable patterns. For any typical operation, the Federation would have postponed until safer conditions prevailed, but the array's malfunction had left communication strained, and time was of the essence. The Celestial Dream had to complete the repair or risk losing critical data from across the sector. The ship's crew had everything prepared for a safe spacewalk to access the satellite's main control panel and reset its systems. The HFY navigator, Vrak, had calculated an entry window with his typical precision, timing the crew's maneuver to avoid the larger asteroid drifts. The Traku engineer, Zyler, had crafted an exact repair sequence that would ensure minimal disruption. Everything was set for a flawless mission, with each alien moving in perfect synchronization. Except for one problem, the satellite's control panel was jammed shut. Vrak and Zyler examined it from every angle, scanning for any indication of the issue. The Traku engineer even attempted a few experimental micropulses of energy, hoping to release the panel's magnetic lock, but to no avail. Tension grew on the bridge as valuable time slipped by, each passing second bringing them closer to a new wave of asteroid activity. Jake, watching with growing impatience, finally spoke up. "Hey, I think I know how to get that panel open." The aliens turned to look at him, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. Zyler, the Traku, tilted his head, his frilled antennae twitching in suspicion. "Human Jake? Are you certain? This is not the time for experimental procedures." Jake grinned, giving them a thumbs up. "Relax, I saw this on YouTube once. Same problem, just needs a little encouragement." Vrak's scales shifted color, a nervous green tint appearing across his body as he absorbed the implications of Jake's words. "Are you suggesting," he said slowly, "that you're basing your solution on a YouTube video? A primitive visual databank?" Jake's confidence remained unshaken. "It's not primitive. It's got everything you need for field repairs. I saw a video where this guy opened a stuck car door with a few simple tools. The satellite's jammed panel shouldn't be much different." Every alien in earshot shifted uncomfortably, exchanging worried glances. They were trained professionals, accustomed to precision and control, and Jake's easygoing attitude toward critical repairs was borderline sacrilegious to them. Still, the crew was out of options, and the asteroid field was shifting, forcing them to act quickly. Against their better judgment, the aliens agreed to allow Jake to attempt his YouTube fix, albeit with numerous conditions. He would remain in constant communication, follow every directive from Zyler to the letter, and stop immediately at the first sign of instability. Despite their deep skepticism, the crew had to admit that humans had a unique approach to problem solving, one that occasionally achieved remarkable results. Suited up and tethered, Jake exited the airlock and approached the satellite's control panel, tools in hand. Floating just behind him were 2 drone cameras transmitting his actions back to the crew, who watched with bated breath. Jake pulled out a thin pry bar and wedged it under the panel's edge, wiggling it slightly. "Just needs a bit of a nudge," he muttered to himself, recalling the YouTube tutorial as if it were a sacred manual. As he pried and twisted, Vrak's voice came over the comm, his tone tense. "Human Jake, exercise caution. This panel is not a car door. There are sensitive components underneath." Jake, unperturbed, replied, "Don't worry, Vrak, I got this." Just like the guy in the video, he knew what he was doing. He pushed harder, feeling the panel begin to loosen, though it resisted with a metallic groan. Finally, with one last push, the panel gave way. But instead of sliding open as planned, it flew off with a snap, exposing a tangled mess of wires, circuit boards, and a tiny sensor with a flashing red light. Back on the celestial dream, Zyler's face contorted in horror as he recognized the blinking light. That's the thermal regulator sensor. Human Jake, do not touch. But before Zyler could finish, Jake's gloved hand had already brushed against the sensor, triggering an immediate alarm. On the comms, the crew could hear Jake's voice go from confidence to worry in seconds. What's that beeping? The beeping quickly escalated to a rapid, piercing alarm. The sensor had activated the satellite's emergency shutdown, and as a result, it began venting pressurized coolant into space, a protective mechanism to prevent overheating. But the force of the release sent the satellite spinning, and with it, Jake, who struggled to hold on. The crew watched in horror as Jake flailed, trying to regain control as the satellite spun faster, knocking against a nearby asteroid and throwing out sparks of electric discharge. Zyler's antennae quivered in panic as he issued rapid-fire commands to Jake, trying to talk him through stabilizing himself. But the situation was slipping from control. Jake's voice came through the comms, sounding more than a little panicked. Okay, I've got this. Just like in that other video, if I can latch onto the arm here and use the tether to wrap around. He began working through a new plan, improvising as he went along, his mind flashing through bits of advice he'd seen in various space survival videos. The aliens on the bridge exchanged horrified glances, unable to believe their human crewmate was basing life-or-death decisions on amateur footage. Miraculously, Jake managed to hook his tether around part of the satellite's arm and steady himself, using leverage to slow the satellite spin. Once he stabilized, he activated the emergency override, finally stopping the coolant leak. The satellite stopped spinning, and Jake was left panting, sweat dripping inside his helmet as he floated in place. Back on the celestial dream, the aliens exhaled collectively, a mixture of relief and frustration evident on their faces. Zyler cleared his throat, his voice trembling as he tried to remain professional. Human Jake, please, next time, consult with us before following these YouTube methods. The risks are unacceptable. Jake chuckled nervously. Hey, it worked, didn't it? Besides, it's all about thinking on your feet. Vrak, his scales still an anxious green, replied. Human Jake, thinking on one's feet is a strategy that may work in low-stakes situations. But here, it nearly cost us the mission and your life. Back on board, Jake received a stern reprimand from both Vrak and Zyler. But to their surprise, he listened with humility, acknowledging his mistake. For all his boldness, Jake respected the experience of his alien crewmates, even if he had a different way of solving problems. Yet, despite the scolding, a peculiar realization lingered with the alien crew. Jake's improvisation had worked. His ability to adapt on the fly, his uncanny calm in crisis, and his determination to find a solution, even if unorthodox, had ultimately saved the mission. Word of the incident spread throughout the fleet, and the Federation soon adopted a new guideline. If a human mentioned YouTube, protocols now required an immediate second opinion before any action was taken. But the Federation also noted one new detail in the mission logs. Humans, while reckless, possessed an unpredictable resilience, a willingness to confront the impossible. And though they'd never admit it, some alien crewmates began watching YouTube videos in their own time, curious to understand. The tales of humans and their peculiar reliance on YouTube for expert knowledge had spread across the Galactic Federation. Every crew, outpost, and research station had heard of the infamous phrase, "Trust me, I saw this on YouTube." By now, it had become an unspoken warning. Federation members learned to regard the phrase with a mixture of disbelief, caution, and, in many cases, outright terror. Humans had proven themselves to be both brilliant and terrifyingly reckless, capable of engineering incredible solutions or creating utter chaos, with little more than a vague video tutorial as a guide. The unofficial Federation rule was clear. Under no circumstances should humans be allowed to implement a solution based on something they had seen on YouTube without immediate oversight. And yet, despite all the warnings, there were times when curiosity and necessity led other species to let a human try their unorthodox methods. One of those times occurred on the research station Eldros 7, an event that would forever cement humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable problem solvers. Eldros 7 was a classified research station located in a remote sector of Federation space, dedicated to the study of rare and volatile substances. Staffed by elite scientists and engineers, the facility was outfitted with some of the most advanced containment systems in the galaxy, capable of isolating substances that could destabilize entire planets. The team was comprised of carefully selected experts, including the highly meticulous Stari and the analytical Kvorthians, both species known for their precision and aversion to risk. Among them, though, was a single human, Alex Turner, a young research assistant who had been brought on as part of an experimental exchange program. Alex was intelligent and curious, his enthusiasm making him a quick learner in an environment that demanded caution and precision. But to his alien colleagues, he also represented a source of anxiety. Every scientist on Eldros 7 had heard of Thalos 4's gravity mishap and the Celestial Dream incident. The mere mention of YouTube was enough to cause nervous glances and hurried conversations among the Eldros 7 crew. And Alex, with his boundless curiosity, was exactly the type of human to experiment with YouTube-inspired solutions. The incident began with a cooling system malfunction in the containment lab. Eldros 7 was holding a sample of exothium, one of the most volatile substances known to the Federation. Exothium was powerful, with potential applications in energy production and advanced weaponry, but it was incredibly unstable. To prevent it from detonating, it had to be kept in a vacuum-sealed containment unit at an exact temperature. Even a slight deviation could trigger a reaction with catastrophic consequences. On this particular day, as the scientists were running routine diagnostics, the cooling system malfunctioned. The exothium chamber began to overheat, and within minutes, the sample was nearing its critical temperature threshold. The entire station went into emergency lockdown, alarms blaring as red lights flashed throughout the facility. Scientists scrambled to the control room, reviewing safety protocols and running calculations for a safe shutdown. Dr. Rilar, the station's starry head scientist, was at the center of the commotion. He was a figure of calm authority, his species' characteristic stoicism giving him an unshakable composure. As his team worked to stabilize the cooling system, he issued commands in his slow, methodical voice. Begin diverting all available coolant to the exothium chamber. Prioritize containment integrity. We have approximately 3 minutes before the substance reaches critical. The team sprang into action, but it quickly became clear that something was wrong. The cooling system was unresponsive, and none of the standard procedures were working. The coolant reserves were locked in place, and each attempt to reroute power or bypass the system was met with failure. Panic began to set in as the countdown continued, and the exothium's temperature inched closer to its critical limit. Amidst the chaos, Alex, who had been watching the screens with mounting anxiety, suddenly snapped his fingers. "Wait! I think I know a fix," he exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "I saw a video on YouTube about something like this." The room went silent, every alien turning to stare at him, their expressions a mixture of horror and disbelief. Dr. Rilar's composure wavered for the first time, his usually calm eyes widening as he processed Alex's words. "Human Alex," he said, his voice barely hiding the tremor of panic. "This is not the time for experimental approaches. The exothium is moments away from destabilization." Alex held up his hands, speaking quickly, his voice laced with urgency. "Trust me, this guy on YouTube showed how to bypass coolant systems by rerouting power from non-essential units. It's a little risky, but it could get the cooling system back online." Dr. Rilar hesitated, torn between his instinctive mistrust of anything related to YouTube and the dire need for a solution. The cooling system had less than a minute before the exothium would reach its critical limit. If nothing was done, the sample would explode, vaporizing the entire station and everyone aboard. With no other options, Dr. Rillar gave a reluctant nod. Do it, but be quick. Alex didn't waste a second. He raced to the control panel, his hands moving with practiced speed as he located the power circuits for the station's lighting and secondary systems. Following the steps he remembered from the video, he began to reroute power, disabling lighting across non-essential sectors of the station and funneling every available watt into the cooling system. His alien colleagues watched in silent dread, prepared for the worst. Alex reached the final step, taking a deep breath as he prepared to bypass the coolant regulator entirely. With a quick flip of a switch, he completed the circuit. There was a moment of tense silence as everyone held their breath, eyes fixed on the temperature monitor. For a split second, it looked as though the exothium was continuing to heat up, but then, slowly, the temperature began to drop. Cheers erupted as the team watched the exothium's temperature return to safe levels, the cooling system finally responding. The crisis was averted, and the scientists slumped with relief. Dr. Rillar exhaled, his shoulders relaxing as he turned to Alex. Human Alex, you have saved us, but at what risk? Alex grinned sheepishly. It was worth a try, right? I mean, the guy in the video knew what he was doing. But as Alex began to reset the systems, a new problem emerged. The lights across the station flickered erratically, and power fluctuations surged through various sectors. Alex had rerouted power so quickly that several backup systems hadn't registered the changes properly. An electrical overload rippled through the station systems, and the containment unit holding the exothium suddenly went dark. Dr. Rillar's eyes widened as he realized the gravity of what had happened. Human Alex, the containment field, it's offline. Alex's face turned pale, and he scrambled to reroute power back to the containment unit. But the exothium, now without a containment field, began reacting to the station's atmosphere, its surface glowing with a faint, ominous light. The team watched in horror as the mineral started to destabilize, cracks forming along its crystalline surface. Everyone, evacuate! Dr. Rillar shouted, his calm completely shattered. Scientists and engineers bolted for the exits, alarms blaring as emergency doors began to close. But as they reached the airlock, Alex, who had been lagging behind, turned back, a determined look on his face. Wait, I saw another video, one about makeshift containment fields, he yelled, rushing back toward the exothium chamber. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed a portable containment shield from a storage unit, setting it up in front of the exothium sample. Alex, get back here! One of his alien colleagues shouted, but Alex was already adjusting the portable shield settings, improvising a field that he hoped would contain the exothium long enough for a proper lockdown. Holding his breath, Alex activated the shield. It flickered, unstable at first, but gradually solidified, casting a faint, shimmering glow around the exothium. The scientists watched from the airlock, too terrified to move. Slowly, the cracks in the exothium stopped spreading, and the sample stabilized, its ominous glow fading. The station fell silent as everyone realized the immediate danger had passed. The exothium was contained, the cooling system was back online, and the station was intact. Alex turned, giving the others a shaky thumbs up. Once the initial shock wore off, the scientists pulled Alex into the airlock, bombarding him with scolding lectures and panicked warnings. Dr. Rillar, his composure mostly restored, sighed deeply. Human Alex, I cannot deny that you saved us twice. But your methods, the Federation has protocols for a reason. These YouTube methods, they are hazardous. Alex nodded sheepishly. I know, document. But sometimes, when you're out of options, you have to think outside the box. The story of the near catastrophe on Eldros 7 spread faster than light across the Federation. Eldros 7 became infamous, a cautionary tale for every research station and exploration crew. The Federation Council convened an emergency meeting and unanimously enacted an official regulation. All human personnel were now required to submit any YouTube-based solutions to a review panel before implementation in any high-risk situations. Yet, beneath the frustration and exasperation, a newfound respect for human ingenuity emerged. The aliens came to realize that while human methods were unpredictable, they